The Carolina Hurricanes have advanced to the second round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs after ousting the Islanders in a hard-fought six-game battle. Jared Ellis of Locked On Hurricanes is here to talk to us about what lies ahead for the Canes as they look for a long playoff run.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could join us. Be part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. You can subscribe on your favorite podcatcher or YouTube so you can catch every episode as they drop. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Carolina Hurricanes, Jared Ellis. And Jared, pretty exciting time to be a Hurricanes fan. They have advanced to the second round of the playoffs. And I mean, what is the mood around the team after winning in the first round?
I think it's definitely a sigh of relief almost because, so many injuries that the Hurricanes are dealing with, and it just kept piling up. So for them to be able to oust the Islanders in the second round, in the first round, I definitely feel it's like, all right, let's go. We got it. Freddie Anderson, he's back and ready to go. I know we'll talk about him in a second. And then another really fun thing just for Hurricanes fans in general, especially longtime Hurricanes fans, is that not only have they made the playoffs for the first 5 years of Rod Brind'Amour's coaching tenure, they've also advanced to at least the second round in each of those first 5 years. And you talk to a Hurricanes fan 10 years ago, they're going to laugh in your face at that.
Yeah, definitely a big step forward for the team and the franchise. You mentioned the injuries. Obviously, some of the offensive players, the top offensive players on this team are not going to be coming back for the rest of the playoffs. How does this team try to address that, and who has to step up and compensate for the loss of those key players?
Yeah, so obviously no Max Pacioretty, no Andrei Svechnikov, no Teuvo Teravainen. Those are all really, really big losses. We've talked about it before. Pacioretty, he was supposed to bring offense in, and then, he tore his Achilles the first time. He was essentially going to be the trade deadline pickup with his return. Came back, tore it again, and then Svech, tore his ACL. Teuvo broke his hand, and it's all just really rough. Jack Drury, thankfully, is looking to be good to go for game one. I know he's not as big of a piece as those guys, but just to be able to get someone back in the lineup is going to be really good. And as far as guys that need to step up, there's obviously, the obvious guys like Sebastian Aho. He had a really good first round. I believe it was 3 goals, 4 assists. And another one, and Brent Burns as well. But what I'm looking at here to kind of make up for the lack of offensive players is what we saw during the regular season. A lot of the offense coming from the blue line. That was something that the Hurricanes sometimes got on my nerves with that, because I'm like, come on, Fords, this is your job. Let's go. But now that's what we're going to need. And in that first round, the only defenseman to score a goal out of all of them, funny enough, was Jacob Slavin. The best defensive defenseman in the NHL, was the only one to score a goal. So we're going to need guys like Brent Burns. Yeah, he racked up a bunch of assists in that first round series. Going to need him putting some goals or pucks in the back of net. Brady Shea, guy who had a really, really underrated season. He wasn't grabbing the headlines like Erik Karlsson and Dougie Hamilton. He's another guy. You're going to want to be seeing that from him. Shane Gostisbehere, when he came from Arizona, breathed a lot of life into the power play for the Hurricanes. Those are going to be guys that are going to need to step it up big time. And of course, the forward group as a whole, of course.
Now, you mentioned the goaltending. Antti Raanta started the first 5 games. Frederik Andersen was either ill and or injured at various times, depending on which quote you believe. He comes back, plays very well in game 6. What is the plan heading into round 2? Who do you think plays and why?
So earlier today, just before we hopped on this call, it was announced at the media availability that they would be alternating goalies for the next series. They didn't confirm it. It just says definitely in consideration, but kind of figured that's going to go. Frederick Anderson, whenever he came in, he was supposed to be the number one guy, and Game 6 was his playoff debut for the Hurricanes. He hadn't played a playoff game in over 900 days. Crazy to think about. But I think that's fine. I kind of expected that to be the case anyway, heading into the playoffs before Freddie had his issues. So I'm not really surprised. I do feel that alternating isn't a guarantee. I do feel like, say in game one, Freddie just has a monster game, or Auntie Ranta has a monster game. I think, yeah, it's a good shot that they get the start in game two as well, because you are going to want to roll with the hot set of hands. But I don't necessarily see a guy, whether it's Freddie, whether it's Auntie Ranta, heck, whether it's Pyotr Kochetkov, if one of the other guys goes down. I don't necessarily see them getting 5 starts in a row again like Auntie Ranta did, unless they are just going on a stupid monster tear.
Talk to me about special teams, because they played a big role in the round one win over the Islanders. How important will they be for this team, especially since you have so many goal scorers out of the lineup right now?
I think it's going to be, you know, as important as it was in that first round series, if not more important. The penalty kill was outstanding. We've talked about that the other day, how good it was. But I think the power play is really going to have to step it up. It was kind of hot and cold in that first round series. There are games, where they had multiple power play goals, and there was games where they had nothing, or the only power play goal came off New York scoring on themselves. So that's gonna be something that really has to step it up, because it you're down so many offensive guys for 5-on-5. You're going to need every advantage you can get, and the competition is only going to get tougher from here, whether it be New Jersey or New York. We'll find that out later, and then they get past that, whoever it may be then, and then if you get to the final, it's just going to get tougher and tougher, and they have to be firing on all cylinders. That's gonna be really, really important.
Do you have a preference as to who you face in the next round?
Oh gosh, this is something I've been thinking about a lot. Initially, it was definitely the Devils, with their lack of playoff experience, but they have gotten really hot. They forced a game 7. So a hot team gets hot in the playoffs, anything happen. We saw it with the Hurricanes a few years ago. Anything can happen. But I would still probably say the Devils, simply because of how the Rangers have had the Hurricanes number so often this season, last season. It just feels like that is a team where they just struggle to get past, kind of like how Boston was in 2019 and 2020, how the Devils were way back in the early 2000s.
Right.
It just feels like the Rangers are that team that they struggle with in the playoffs, and I feel the Devils, they're not gonna roll over and be an easy team to knock out. It's not gonna be a sweep or anything like that, but I do feel that that may be the better matchup for the Hurricanes right now with the way their roster is looking.
All right, Jared, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, of course. You can find the show on whatever stream platform you're listening to this one on, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever. It's going to be on all of those. You can also find it on YouTube at Locked On Hurricanes, and you can find the show on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes, and myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis_96.
All right, Jared, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by a product I literally use every day, AG1 by Athletic Greens. Maybe you're like me, you want to be healthy and eat well, but it's easier said than done. That's no longer the case with AG1. With just one delicious scoop of AG1 in a glass of water each day, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all these things. And it costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. That's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.